Everybody, welcome to the speak. Yes, I would like to anticipate that this meeting will be recorded. I hope that there is the approval of all the participants, and as well we will take some photo also for social media. So I hope as well everybody agree on that. I want to welcome you all to this multilateral dialogue where we want to focus on the representation of women in gender equality and women, peace and security. I'm Cristina Cerioni. I'm the founder of the CEAMM Bridging the Gaps, which is a platform that wants to bring multilateral stakeholders to join together in discussion, but also to work together towards development, gender equality, peace and women's security, all the SDGs that for by 2030 we as a society collectivity want to achieve. And this is indeed an occasion where we want to join together in a dialogue to discuss what the institution role in the strength, the gender equality, and also the women peace and security, and also what is the role of the women to support those matters, also from the civil society, from the NGO, for the academia, just because we need to join forces and try to bridge the gap in order to create a more applicable policy, but also to create a concrete project that can bring an added value and a positive impact to the society. So I'm very honored. I'm also to present the G100. I'm part of the G100 as a global advisor for the alliances and the alumni wings, together with Dr. Minaskin, which is with us as well. Which is the global chair of this wing, where we want to strengthen the partnership with other stakeholders to join this organization founded by Dr. Arbin, to whom I will give the floor now for the presentation of the organization. The floor is to you, Dr. Arbin. Welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity and the initiative, Soul Sister Cristina. So grateful. Indeed, we need to be involved to evolve new solutions. And this dialogue is a great, precious opportunity to bring institutional stakeholders together with civil society movements and change the narrative, change the game, bring out new actions that are positive in mindset, and bring these movements into the mainstream of society, political life, business, and whatever aspect of economy and society we are in. I'm so grateful that we are today also joined by the G100 Global President 2025, former member of European Parliament from Sweden, Soul Sister Bodil Valero. I know she is in Belém right now attending the COP30, and she soon has a flight to take back to Europe. Still, she is here with us and she will be soon speaking to us as well. This is an important moment in time when we are all struggling with a lots of challenges, be it at the climate level, be it at the societal level. However, I also believe that key challenges, key moments of challenges create tipping points when they force us to think of our life and ask us, all people who are in not necessarily leading in public life, to step up into public roles, into public lives. And that is the ask that the G100 has of women today. And this we are doing by bringing eminent role models, empowering role models, relatable role models at the topmost level of society across every possible wing. We have 100 wings that represent 100 different domains. We have practically every country represented, and we are doing this at a level which is not just the topmost, not just the grassroots, but by a model called distributed leadership, where everyone at every level leads to create co-create with our brothers. We also have a denim club. Robert Baker is here today, who's part of the denim club as well. So every chair, as we say, be it a global chair, country chair, has a partner or a male ally. And we chose the word denim because it's the same denim, whoever wears it, creating a symbol of cool and confident and equal conversations in this gender equality journey. And in this journey, we are urging the women who are everywhere, they're leaders everywhere. There is no dearth of talent. However, we need more visibility. Need more voice. And like my soul sister, Patricia Elias, who started this wonderful petition for peace, getting every woman included into the peacemaking processes that are happening everywhere, just gathering everybody together and releasing this sense of the collective consciousness and a certain boldness and confidence that together we can. Together in our middle, we have every possible competency, and with our sisterhood among the women, and with our solidarity with our brothers, we can bridge the gaps. There is no shortage of will. There is no shortage of goodwill. Perhaps we have depended far too long and far too much only on political power, and it is time to energize other sources of power, particularly in civil society, and create these multilateral, multi-platform, omni-channel dialogues so that we can have dialogues plurally in every way, in every moment, in every country, in every platform, so that we are not mere spectators of a world that is passing us by, but active players and participants and co-creators in shaping a world that we wish to see. We have 5 different platforms. This event is in co-creation with the G100 Club of Global Women Leaders, which comprises leaders as Nobel laureates, first ladies, heads of states, members of European Parliament, former members of Parliament, everybody who has been there, who is there, and who wants to be there, and supporting each other with the mentorship that we need and a mindset that together we can. The other platform that is joining us today and enabling this meeting today is the Sheconomy platform, which is a digital first omni-channel platform ensuring that we give space to women-owned businesses. This is a platform where all women-owned businesses, be it in products, be it in services, are provided a free hosting space, completely free, where they can interact with each other freely. We provide the digital tools. But it's not just digital, it is digital first. We ensure through tireless, all kind of different, right now, for example, we are in the middle of 100 days virtual tour of 100 countries. Today was day 51, which means we have already covered 51 countries. In the G100, we are covering these countries in person. So as we speak, because the model, the blueprint and the strategic architecture is to have 10,000 members in every wing, which is 1 million members across all the 100 wings. But we have the Women Economic Forum. We just did an event in Palermo for the Mediterranean. Multiple platforms are working together to ensure we reach critical mass of 1 million gender champions to create the tipping point. We also have 100 recommendations across 10 principles that we call the LAGOS, which is working on the principles with 100 partners, be it in institutions, be it countries, on the levers of education, legislation, leadership, empowerment, governance, ownership, security, solidarity, sustainability, and equality. And each theme, each principle has its further recommendations, and our entire network is working together, whether Sister Lucia De Luca, who was recently at the Paris Peace Forum, whether Meenakshi Dabral, who is convening diplomatic meetings across Southeast Asia in Singapore. There are many, many sisters across the G100 who, as global chairs or as country chairs, we are having the 16 days of activism, concluding with an event in the French Senate. Sister Patricia is here talking about that. We are doing a lot of stuff, but it is very important that we don't do these in our silos, that we come together in interaction and weaving things together. And this event is an example of what this interaction looks like. I propose that we make this an annual meeting, an annual event, and I will leave it to Sister Christina's leadership to do that. With that, I conclude my address, and I'm eager to learn from everyone else.
Thank you, Dr. Arvin. Thank you for the hard work that you do also to improve the humanity. And as a part of the session, I've been in many of the events that has been indeed held, the Italian one, but all around the world. And really, I'm a testimony of the having so many leaders that try really to give back to the society what they have been for many years working in their own personal and profession. So thank you for keeping us as a group and for giving us the opportunity also to engage with each other, to share our knowledge and to partner to really make this impact in the society, like you said, not in silos, but all together. And what is one of your motto, which really resonates us, is all together we strength, all together we rise. So thanks for your contribution and for the opportunity. I will give now the floor to Ana Carla Pereira, the DG Just. Ana Carla is the DG for Gender Equality. And Ana Carla, thank you for being with us. Really appreciate also you have been, I have to say, the first who really accept my invitation and give me also the strength to then try to engage with other leaders from the institution. So we are all keen to understand a little bit and to hear from you. Especially this year, that is a special year, 25 years of the anniversary of the gender equality, including the Beijing Declaration of 2020 and the EU Charter for Fundamental Rights. There is a new roadmap for the 26-2030, where the European Commission wants to strengthen the gender equality topic, also a roadmap for women's rights and a work-life balance. So please, I give you the floor and thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone, or good morning wherever you are in the planet. It's really a pleasure to be here to discuss among sisters, as I heard, but I suppose there are also brothers in the group, and give you a bit of a perspective of what is happening at EU level, and from a Commission perspective, because I know that there are other persons representing other EU institutions that will speak later on. I think if you allow me to first say that it's an anniversary year, Cristina, as you mentioned, but it's also a year that brings a lot of challenges, because in the recent past, we have seen how the political discourse has harshened so much and against gender equality and against women's rights. And there are very worrying trends in the EU, and I suppose globally, on questioning the existing gender equality legislation, and actually going back to what seemed to be going down, but the political discourse of sexism and gender stereotypes seems to be in fashion again, and seems to be welcomed in a way, or accepted. And of course, this for us is extremely worrying, because we are truly committed to gender equality. And so to combat that political discourse, the Commission put forward the Roadmap for Women's Rights, which has been recently endorsed by all EU member states and by the EU institutions. And this Roadmap for Women's Rights is really a declaration of principles to uphold women's rights, because we believe these are not anachronic, they are very pertinent in today's global challenges, and certainly to address EU strategic objectives. When we talk, for example, about competitiveness, it is really difficult to talk about competitiveness of firms, of innovation and society at EU level if you don't consider the talents of half of the population. And so this is for us an economic imperative, is to ensure that gender equality is a part of the economic policies. If we don't do that, then we are missing out of almost 3 trillion euros that we could be gaining by having gender equality by 2050. So it is really an economic imperative, as I said, and it would be just dumb if we would not invest in gender equality. The other aspect, of course, is about democracy. We do know that in societies where there's more equality, there's also more peace, there's more stability, there's more healthy democracies where women are represented in local authorities, regional, national authorities, where there is more participation in elections. Then there is also a bigger sense of democracy, stability, and security. And so this is yet another just evident argument to say that gender equality benefits not only women, but it benefits everyone. Benefits also men and non-binary. And finally, there's also an issue of social fairness. Obviously, if we invest in gender equality, you of course also need to have a look at women that are in more precarious situations, because women tend to be more affected by poverty. Older women, for example, are more affected by poverty than older men, because women are time poor because of their care responsibilities, because there are gender pay gaps, there are gender employment gaps, there are gender pension gaps, and all this does merit a policy reflection of how we can combat all these disequilibriums and inequalities. So our roadmap is really an expression of our commitment to fight these issues on a number of areas. There are 8 principles in this roadmap. They stem from combating violence against women and girls to women in health, for example, or education, or women in politics. So it does cover an array of issues. When it comes to peace and security, because I know this is a central point in today's discussion, let me just mention 3 points that I think are important, but certainly not exhaustive for the conversation. The first one is to recognize that in zones of conflict or post-conflict, the incidence of violence against women is even higher than when there is in peace and democratic settings. And this is, of course, a very important reflex, because it means that women are even more victims of wars than the rest of the population. And somehow in a war zone, the perpetrator feels emboldened even to act in a violent manner on women and girls. So this is for us an essential topic of conversation when we talk about women and peace and security. How can we protect women that live in war zones or post-war zones from violence? The second point is obviously the presence of women in decision-making when it comes to defense security policies. It has traditionally been dominated by men. It is an agenda dominated by men, and only by having more women at the seat of power can things change, and can gender equal perspective be injected in security and the defense policies. And the third point I want to mention is that for those women who would like or would be inclined to be, for example, in the military, we are very far away from having, let's say, conditions that are equal for men and women that would like to be in the military. Just take, for example, the equipment. Is the equipment tailored also for female bodies in those contexts? So these are just 3 points that I think are worth discussing in this context. And what we are currently working on, as you said, Cristina, is on a European gender equality strategy for the period 2026-2030. This strategy will reflect in its embryon the principles of the roadmap and really have a programmatic agenda and see what we can do with concrete actions. And obviously the issue of women in peace and security will be part of those considerations. So any thoughts of what can we do concretely in this area at EU level, but not only, I think they're very much welcomed to nourish our reflection. Our paper is scheduled for March, around International Women's Day. So there is still the possibility of nourishing with some good ideas. I leave it at that. And of course, I'm happy to interact later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you also for giving us a perspective also in women, peace and security. Indeed, it is very important to take into consideration the women affected in the local country where they are the carrier, basically, especially in situations where the men usually service the nation, or as well women that are in the leading of policymaker, or as well the soldier, because myself I have been the opportunity to meet women that are soldier, and with the tears in their eyes they were just telling me how difficult it is to be a soldier, just because you are proud of your nation and want to serve your nation, to be a mother as well, and to be a worker. So there is really, like you said, the need to create a support for everybody, also to support, enable them to work at the best, maintaining also all the other responsibility. And as well, like you said, the 8 priorities that the European Union is working on gender equality is very important and very wide. In a sense, is the violence against women that is increasing also nowadays with innovation through hybrid and online event, but as well a subject like disability, where I see that the European Commission is really trying to strengthen the effort to create a more inclusive ecosystem and environment also for any type of category, and giving them the opportunity to really live at the best their personal situation. So there is, I see there is a lot that is has been done, but a lot also maybe to support also these opportunities to help you to understand better what are the needs of the civil society. Sometimes if there are some gaps that has been not taken into consideration, because it's also difficult to try to cover all the gap from an institutional perspective. And so this is also why we want to engage and ask you, what do you need from our side? How we can contribute, how we can help you to make your role more effective than what it is already. So very grateful for what all you are doing. And beside the European new roadmap, we are also working this year in a new Mediterranean Pact. And with this, indeed, I want to introduce Anna Dorangricchia, which is the project manager of the Mediterranean. So Anna, welcome. Please, yes, introduce yourself, but also since it's also a new initiative, we are all very keen to learn what it is about and how we can streamline forces also with Ana Carla Pereira, with Lina Galvez, with all the institution team to make this new pact more effective and useful. Thank you, Anna. And welcome.
Thank you very much, Cristina. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Anna Drongrica. I'm responsible for gender equality agenda at the Union for Mediterranean, which is an intergovernmental organization of 43 member states, including, of course, the 27 of European Union, plus 4 countries from Balkan areas, Turkey, and 10 MENA countries, Middle East and North Africa. Happy to be here with you and happy to share also the floor to Dr. Lara Scarpitta and with Loredana Teodorosco, because we have been in touch lately for different initiatives, and Lara will be with us, even if online, in 2 days, because the UFM is launching a new initiative, which is called a Regional Network on Climate, Women, Peace and Security. Why we are launching this and which kind of contribution to peace and security this can bring. We are talking about a region where we know it's considered an hotspot for climate change, but is also affected by conflict and post-conflict and social inequalities. So mapping what has been done in the region on women's role as agent of change in climate policies and what is the participation of women in peace processes, we have noticed that climate from one side is not at all, or in very few cases, present in the National Action Plan for Women, Peace and Security. And from the other side, the National Action Plans on climate, they don't take into account the gender lines. So what we are proposing is to create a nexus to work together with the representative of government, meaning ministries of environment and climate and national machinery for women, peace and security, but also with civil societies, organization, with international organization in the region, with think tank, academia and private sector to create a framework where we can bring the climate perspective in the women, peace and security agenda and gender perspective in the climate action national plan. There is no, so far, an established framework for this. So what we have been doing is to develop with the collaboration of UNDP, Arab states, to create a methodological note, a guidance note, both for public institution and civil society to work together. Starting from the assumption of, first of all, we should shift the narrative from the feminization of vulnerability to women being co-creators of public policies. Until when you consider women only as vulnerable group, you are not going to recognize to them any skills, any capacity, any leadership. Second, women organization, but international organizations, civil society, and public authorities, they should recognize that if you want to have a very meaningful gender transformative approach when you talk about public policies on climate and women, peace and security, you have to engage women. You don't need to involve them. You need to engage, which is different, meaning that they need to be at the table, absolutely, and the quota system has helped a lot on this, but at which extent they are participation at the decision-making process is real, which is not exactly the same. Sorry, just to refer to what you were saying about the new Pact for Mediterranean, which is an initiative of the European Commission, the new Director General for MENA, Middle East and North Africa. In the pact, there is a clear reference to gender equality and cross-cutting issues, and the role of women-led organizations is well recognized. But when it comes to security, unfortunately, there is no clear reference to women's role, and we really hope we are committed to cooperate with the European Commission to make possible that in the action plan for the implementation of the new pact, there will be this commitment. For sure, it is included already in the new strategy that we are going to present on 28th of November for the Mediterranean Day in Barcelona, together with the European Commission. Last point I wanted to mention is about the fact that you mentioned at the beginning, all this is possible because we work in partnership. The UFM has been working since years as a convening institution, building the trust with government and with civil society in the region. But still, we need to work in a more structured way when it comes to gender equality and women's rights. This is why, together with the European Commission, again, we are going to launch a civil society engagement process that will be presented on the 26th of November in Barcelona, which will be aligned with the communication published on last week on Friday by the European Commission on civil society. There will be a platform at European level, and there are platforms at the global level. So we would really like to cooperate to capitalize on what has been already done and what can be done in the future in this area. We have created thematic platforms on women in artificial intelligence, on women social entrepreneurship, on women in climate leadership. We would like to open the network, but also to capitalize really on good experience that I think you are going to share with us today. I stop here and available.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, no, because you very interesting also this new initiative, which I think it's very important to give the voice, like you said, not only to involve, but really to engage with women, especially in this sense of also in the part of the Mediterranean. And you just introduced yourself, the contribution of FEM. And with this, I want to introduce, thank you, Anna, for your contribution. And I want to introduce Lina Galvez Munoz, the group, part of the group of Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats at the European Parliament, so member of the European Parliament and also chair of the FEM, the Committee of Women's Rights and Gender Equality. So the floor to you, Lina, also to continue what Anna introduced and to also give us a little bit an overview, what are the challenges, if there are also women involvement in the politic leadership and representation. Thank you for being with us, Lina, as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Cristina. Thank you very much, not only for the invitation, but also for putting all us here together, because as it has been said already, I mean, to work together, to collaborate, it is essential. And I would say because probably the ones that wants to destroy the equality agenda are collaborating very much, and they are working very much together. So we cannot anymore afford to be in silos, as it has been said before, because otherwise we will not move on. Now it is not only, I mean, it's the very same agenda of equality is being questioned. There is an enormous and important backlash. So now more than ever, we really need to cooperate, and we really need to link any specific area we are working on. In this case, we're in business security with the general advances of gender equality agenda. So I'm gonna divide my talking in three parts. So this kind of introduction. Then I will move to what has been done already in Parliament, at the European Parliament, that is the institution I'm representing here. Finally, I will end up on going back to the beginning, how we can link this agenda to the general agenda on women's rights, and the things that has happened recently in the European Parliament, especially last week in the plenary, when we voted an initiative report for the gender equality strategy that Ana Pereira mentioned, that will be presented in March. So we normally, before we do an initiative report from Parliament, from the European Parliament, that is Parliament that has no initiative, only this report sent to the Commission, because it's worrying, and it is also an example of how this backlash is already arriving here. In other sisters, other colleagues have already said, but it is obvious that we are less present on the sector in peace and security, in defense itself. We are not yet socialized when we are kids on that. Even myself, that I grew up in an Air Force military base. So obviously at the time I grew up, Spain was still in a dictatorship and starting a new democracy, and we were not able to get into the army. So it was not only that we were not socialized, even if I grew up, as I said, in this environment, is that we were not able, legally able. Now this has changed, this is different, but we are not yet socialized on that. We are socialized in quite the opposite. And this is important because this is probably why it is so important we are also in decision making on peace and security, because we know that when we are involved, peace processes are more sustainable, they last longer. So it is important, but it is also important that we end up with those segregation, with those labor segregation, with this sexual stereotypes, in order we can move in this agenda, in agenda that it is based on solving conflicts and not on creating them. Because like this, it will be much better, not only for women, but for everyone else. So I will not mention again how not well prepared it is, the sector for working on it. That have been said, uniforms, many things, but also social services, in order to better balance work and life, many different aspects. But also what I wanted to highlight is how important that we are, as I said before, in those decision-making processes, also because in these conflict areas, in war areas, there is a specific violence against women that sometimes is not well treated, or is not well recognized, and the victims are not well treated in a way. We are now discussing already in trialogue, so discussing with the council the new directive on victims' rights directive. And there, for instance, the council does not want to include, not even in the recitals, the right to a safe and legal abortion. That it is terrible, because what we are talking about is that women and girls, victims of rape or war crimes, some of those were sexual crimes and some active crime, just looking for women to get pregnant, women from the enemy side. So to deny the access of a legal, safe abortion to those women, it is unethical, and it is contrary to our values. So this is already happening in Europe, in the European Union, because the Council members say don't want to include that, not in an article, even in a recital, just to mention to you. If those things happen, we are not talking about real democracy, because when women are not really truly participating in decision making, we cannot say we are living in democracy, because we are 10 more million women, and still we are very much underrepresented, our talent, our participation, and so on and so forth. So what we have done, I move to the second part because I don't want to take a longer time than had been said. So what we have done from the European Parliament. So we adopted a resolution in October 2020 on the role of women in the European Union foreign and security policy that said that women made up only 13% of negotiators, in major peace processes from 1992 to 2018. 4% of signatories and only 3% of mediators. So that is that really reflect how far really we are. I will not talk about the European Union Gender Action Plan because Ana Pereira has already mentioned. Just probably to concentrate on what the Parliament has done as well. At the FAM committee, the committee I'm chair, we used the occasion we normally do every March, around 8th of March, we do an interparliamentary meeting, also inviting parliamentarians from national parliaments from the different European Union members, but also associated countries. And this year, on 2025, we decided, a year ago, we decided that will be on defense, security, and peace building. And I have to say it was a real success, because no one aspect, when we proposed it, was like, but what are you doing that on that? Then everything were becoming more and more complicated. Also, defense became a lot of sense, and I have to say it was a great success, and we have a very good participation. But there we focus on the need to ensure women's full participation in decision-making processes, particularly in defense, security, and peace building. We just passed the Gender Equality Week. It is a week we do every November, the first week of November, on gender mainstreaming. So we ask all the committees within Parliament to organize a hearing or to organize something on gender equality regarding their competencies. So just to think and to reflect how we or they can move on the gender equality agenda. So not only developing gender equality policies and regulation, but also bringing equality to all policies. And I have to say that we have this year, for the first time, a joint hearing with the new Committee on Defense, the committee, with the FAM committee hearing on the occasion of the anniversary we have this year, the 25th anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women's peace and security. And I have to say also that it was a big event and a very nice hearing. So that we are fighting to be present in this agenda, although it is not evident and it is not straightforward. It is not. And I don't think it is not because, and I finish with the third part with this kind of conclusion, I think it's not, first, because it is still seen that this is not something that should preoccupy to women because of this segregation, this different socialization, and also because it is a reflection of real power. We are not still weighted in those high-level real power places, still very much designed by men, but also because the commitment toward gender equality is under attack. And this is the last thing I want to say, and I want to insist on that. Last week, we voted in the plenary in Parliament the gender equality strategy, as I was saying at the very beginning, where we are saying to the Commission what we want. Thank God, everything related to gender-based violence, or even the right to safe and legal abortion, or this sexual and reproductive health rights went on. But everything regarding mainstreaming that will apply for this agenda on peace and security, everything regarding parity, everything regarding gender budgeting that is essential in order to make everything clear, none of that passed. I mean, the parliament, the majority of parliament, because the biggest party in the chamber, the EPP, voted divided in between extreme right proposals and pro-European parties' proposal, and very important things did not pass. Without this conditionality, with this budgeting, without this mainstreaming, without this parity participation, so on and so forth, all these very good principles cannot be translated into effective policies and into effective transformation and into effective advances. So we really need to think what is going on. Things that they passed few years ago, I mean, a couple of years ago, easily in Parliament, and that have helped to move on the gender equality agenda, are not anymore part of a biggest consensus. So this is very worrying, because if that is the case, we will not be able to mainstreaming gender equality on the agenda on peace and security. So I stop here. Sorry, it is a bit, and you were asking how you can contribute on that. Just putting pressure and remembering that in order to move on this peace and security agenda, we really need also to move at the same time on the general gender equality agenda, because otherwise it is just words and it is principles, but it's nothing effective. So putting pressure and working together, that is really the answer of your previous question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lina. No, indeed, I follow on the way. For me, this is really also the goal of this meeting, and the purpose of this meeting is really to emphasize on the importance to do together. We have to act as a we and not as a I. And even like you said, the FAM organized in March an event on defense and security. There is another organization, NATO will do the same, OSCE will do the same. So we need also to try to streamline forces, to create a synergy, and to work together also with NGO, academia, civil society in time of peace. Because until when we treat gender equality as a unit of the defense, we will never succeed. When the gender equality will be included in the soft power and support the hard power to be more effective, also because nowadays we are experiencing a geopolitical situation, but also a different type of, let's say, crisis, which is an hybrid crisis. We need really to support and to be part of the table of the conversation, just because we as a women are the one that by nature and by fact, especially in countries where are affected by war, are driving the community, the military part, and the society. So I think here the gap and the bridge that we have to build, it's really to try to highlight the fact that the support of women in peace and security is not just gender equality topic, but it's really preparedness. We need to shift from resilience to anticipation, and this we can do only engaging with the civil society and trying to connect with the communities, just to prepare also the communities to be reactive in case of a crisis. And this is what women can do just because of the nature, because this is again about empathy, about caring, and not about only operational. So I think what we will try is to, like you said, we will try to support and to be advocacy for also for the institution, and also from a partnership between the private and the public. It is very important because we really need to strengthen the synergy and the collaboration with the private sector, where can even give another view of what is nowadays the defense role in the current scenario. So we will help you, and we will try to continue to work with all the network and with all the professionals that have been already in the. Then the next speaker I'm introducing, Bodil Valero, that she was also a colleague of you in the European Parliament as a member of the Parliament in the period 2014-2019, in the Swedish Parliament between the 2006-2014. So, or still very involved in the security and defense and part of the Global Chair G100, but also the President 25 of the G100. So the floor to you, Sister Bodil, and thank you for being with us, because she is indeed at COP13 Brazil, and she really make the effort to be with us for this lot. Thank you so much, Lina, again, and welcome Bodil Valero.
Thank you, Cristina. The problem is now that I, in reality, have to leave now, because I had promised to be until 50. I just want to say that what I hear from the discussion, there is one thing that is really missing, and that is the question about human security. Because we are in a situation in Europe now where we have a lot of wars around us and a lot of conflicts, but this is not the case in the rest of the world. We have a lot of countries with wars, but in the most countries, the threat to women, the threat to humanity is others. And what we do in our wing, in the security and defense wing, we are working with all the threats. We have participants that are coming from military, we have former guerrilla soldiers, we have researchers in defense, etc., and the security, but we have also health researchers. We have also people working in education, working in climate change, food security, energy security, because those are the threats. Economic security, violence against women. Those are the threats that most people in the world are facing. So when we are talking in Europe, and we are so much only discussing on the military part of it, I think we do a big mistake. And as women, we have to highlight all these other threats and support our sisters around the world when they are working with what they are working. So that is something I missed from the discussion. As Anna Carla said, this is a very male-dominated area, and we have to take back that power in some way. When I was in the European Parliament, 5 years in the Security and Defense Committee, once I managed to get climate change on the agenda, once. And climate change is the most existential threat that we are facing just now. And we have been facing that for many, many years. And there are still people just laughing at it, but this is not a message from the COP here in Belém, really, because what's said here, or the message that we get from everybody, is that now it is urgent. It has been urgent for 30 years, but now it's like people start to understand it's urgent and we have to do it now, and we have to pay. Rich countries have to pay, and everybody that can do whatever they can should also participate in this. It's very much about the nature-based solutions. One important topic that has come into the agenda now for the first time is health. It's not on the agenda, but they have put it into the agenda on adaptation, and that's a good step forward. So I think things will happen. Next week is when the real negotiations are going on. I've been following mostly the parts on gender and on climate finance. I've made a lot of contacts also with people coming into the G100 network, and and have a lot of ideas for the next year. But I will take that with Harbin later on. And thank you for inviting me. And now I have to run. Okay.
Thank you so
bye.
much for your time. Really appreciate. And this is indeed a very important topic, the human security that we tend to forget. And like climate change, instead, a very important, also because the impact on climate due the military and the war is incredible. Thank you for being there and for collecting information and input to bring them with us. And I really appreciate that you took the time to be with us. Thank you so much, Bodil, and have a nice flight. Thank you. So with that, we are giving the floor to Patricia Elias, that is as well our Chief of Diplomacy Campaign, and she's also the Global Chair G100 for Government and Ministerial Advocacy, very dedicated to also peace and security. I give you the floor, Patricia, to hear from you the role of women for peace.
Thank you, Cristina. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here between enlightened person when the world is on fire. A global escalation of 78 state-armed conflicts recorded in 2025, the highest number since World War II. The 2025 Global Peace Index reveals a fundamental reshaping of the global order not seen since the Cold War. The war is at an inflection point. The world is at an inflection point as the number of internationalized interstate conflicts have increased 175% since 2010. This is a record. Expenditure on peace building and peacekeeping was just 0.52% of total military spendings in 2025, 0.52%. Across conflict zone, from Sudan, Darfur, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ukraine, Gaza, Syria, and Myanmar, conflicts are spreading, intensifying, and mutating. War is no longer the exception. It is becoming a global climate where women are not collateral damages, but primary targets. Rape, forced displacement, abduction, enslavement are not incidental, they are tactical weapons of wars. And yet, who speaks of peace? Rarely the man at the negotiation table, rarely the military strategist or the weapon dealers, rarely the headline makers, and rarer still do we hear the voices of women, the first victim of conflicts and the last to be protected. This is the urgency we face today. 24 years ago, the UN Security Council adopted Resolution 1325, the first binding legal instrument to recognize protection, participation, and rights must be central to conflict resolution, peace building, and post-conflict recovery. A groundbreaking acknowledgement that women are not only victims of wars, but powerful agents of peace. Yet today we must ask, what have we done with this promise? I don't want to tell you about what is happening in South Sudan, even rape of children of 5 years old, abduction, Democratic Republic of the Congo, women and girls suffering in conflict zone with impunity, sexual violence persisting at horrifying levels. I have no word to explain. Another zone that is not a war, but is Afghanistan, where is gender apartheid, you have 20 million women silenced. And yet, where is the legal response proportionate to the gravity of the crimes? Where is the Security Council's urgency when the front lines are women's homes, bodies, and futures? The consequent presence of women at the peace negotiation table would allow this peace. My experience when I was in UN Women in Libya, it was a raging war in 2019. We united 40 women with blood between them. The son of this one killed the father of the other. The husband of this one killed the brother of the other. We were very much worried. What would you want to happen after 1 hour? They fell in the arms one of each other, and they decided to do the Libyan Women Peace Building Network. And they worked on peace. They got over the blood. These men are not able to do it. 2, always in Libya, when I was at UN Women, there was many envoy to stop the war, men envoy, and the war was still raging. They sent one woman. Her name was Stephanie Williams. She came for 1 year. She united the war leaders, and we had peace in Libya in 1 year. A woman's envoy, special envoy. Unfortunately, what happened? They retrieved her because she made peace in Libya. But my experience, my testimonial is that women can do peace in the whole world. Plus, studies, data shows that when you have more women in peace building, you have 35% more chances to have a more lasting peace than 15 years. What is the problem? Is underrepresentation. We have less than 10% of peace negotiators that are women. Underfunding, less than 1% of global funding goes for peace building. And there are targeted attacks against women peace builders. What do we want? I want to be practical. I'm a lawyer, but what we have to be practical. We need to implement Security Resolution 1325. I'm asking of all of you ladies today to ask to implement Security Resolution 1325. Plus, the CEDAW committee took General Resolution 40 that says that equality now is 50-50%. I mean, we as women here and men of enlightened men and women, we know that we have to back up our backs with law. We have UN Security Resolution 13.5. We have General Resolution 40 of the CEDAW Committee. We have also the addendum of General Resolution of CEDAW 30 that speaks about women, peace, and resolution. With those, the states has to implement. And we need implementation, protection, justice. We need peace, designed, led, and sustained by women. We are launching this call for action for the women and men of goodwill of the world. I am asking you, the G100 is launching a call, an international petition that I will put in the chat to each of us to sign it. But I'm asking of you ladies, please, to be our, our voice in your instances to ask for those implementations. Security Resolution 1325, General Recommendation 40, Addendum of General Recommendation 30 of CEDAW Committee. I mean, we need to have gender equality. Implementing those resolutions would honor the very purpose of law itself, to protect the vulnerable, uphold justice, and secure peace for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Really appreciate your effort and on the petition that we all already signed, and we will try to share also to get more signatures. Thanks a lot also for all what you do in this to bring really the voice of women on peace. And now just following on your 50-50 gender right and equality, and introduce Lucia De Luca, that she is the global chair for pay and parity and corporate transformation. Welcome, Lucia. And yes, from your side, please share what is the situation also women from a financial point of view. What is also the challenges on financial access for women, for entrepreneurs, and also for corporate. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Cristina, and thanks for the floor, and hello to everybody. So I think I'll bring it back. I mean, I heard amazing project and amazing policies which are being implemented, and thank you again for to the representative of the European institutions, because it's really important that they do repeat the policies and the activities that are put in place. And also looking forward to hearing from OSCE, because I think, you know, people forget. And so it's really important that you repeat, like, thank you very much, MEP Galvez. So I think I'll bring it back very briefly to the main issue and everything. All of this is that there is, like Mary Ann Sigart wrote in her book, there is an issue, which is the authority gap. We know that despite all the efforts, you know, women are are taken less seriously than men, and nobody wants to do it is doing it on purpose, but this happens. So there is and while there is not that much we can do at, you know, a bigger societal level to address this, what we can do is actually activate and work in our own domain, reality, work, or pro bono activities. So I'll bring here two examples of what we are doing. So as a global chair of the pay parity and corporate transformation, we look at discrepancy at pay level, and we intend as pay not only the Danish partner here. So we had then a vice director of OSCE at the time, and we are still thankful for his support. And also I went out and looked also, thanks to what a very diverse group of people to be part of the G100 wing. G100 wing is of pay parity is not a huge wing, but we have a solid people with a big background in different sectors, and in particular of different ages. So for me, it's super important to have the new generation, because that's, we look at the future, so they need to be part of the conversation. So, and I'm thankful for two members of my wing who are here today, Caron Constant, and yes, and I think there was another member whom has now disappeared, but and Professor Leboua, here it is. So because we support each other, and our role is like very simple. We want to create awareness also among people, among women, and also among men. There's no bad feelings. There's no bad man behind, you know, the HR department saying, I want to pay women less. Unfortunately, there are ways of working. There are stereotypes, but that, you know, just get into the mood and to the way of working. So what we do is create awareness in small circle. We don't have the power still to activate a big level, but we are creating this in small circle. We are bringing positive examples, and we're working within companies. And that's why we have decided, actually at our last meeting, that in September 2026, 18th of September, we want to organize a meeting at the European Parliament, and we will be reaching out to Ms. Galvez as, you know, chair of the CEAMM committee, because it's 18th of September is International Day of Pay Parity, but is also next year is an important day, because we have the directive on transparency, which actually is kicking in, and as well as the directive on a representation of women in boards of listed companies. So there are big deadlines coming in. So we want to take stock about this. We have a couple of ideas, but I am sure that maybe reaching out to our partners, not only to the European Parliament, but also to other institutions, we can create a solid project and program for next year and work towards that with a couple of webinars. Also, I mean, we do work not only in the corporate sector, but also in the multilateralism sectors. You know, with Dr. Arbin, we went to Paris Peace Forums 2 years ago, this year again with the delegation. Because it's important, because indeed, you know, Cristina, is not only disparity. Usually we work in silos. So we say, okay, what are the disparity in the pay sector? What are the disparity here? What are the disparity there? But at the very end is that the authority gap kicks in. So the reason why we pay women less is the same reason why we don't include women in in diplomacy talks. So what we are going to do then, as part of a new project which I'm launching ahead, we have put forward a request for a side event at the Munich Security Conference, which is one of the biggest and most male-dominated conference in the world, with the support of the European Parliament in Germany. So we are waiting for the approval, which is very tough to be approved, but the idea there is really to discuss about what everybody's discussing, which is AI, and reframe AI and see what are the geopolitical implications for AI. And by doing so, we go back to what we said before. We will have an equal representation of women and men. We will have an equal representation of seasoned leaders and new generation of leaders. So those principles, which I said at the beginning, for me apply to all the work I'm doing. So that's the work that we will do with AHEAD and hopefully G100 as well at the Munich Security Conference. So my time came to an end, but I want to just repeat that there are a couple of things which are very important principle. First of all, bring men along. Again, I never received a no when I will reach out to a denim partner, to a man, and I think it's really important that we do this and we remind them, but also bring a lot of women, because there is a big, issues also with women there. Bring the young generation, never forget. And when they tell you, oh, I can't find an expert, well, you can always find an expert. If you have an issue, come to me, because I find experts of all ages, of all regions, in everywhere. So we need to remember this, but also be present. We need to be at those tables, at those seats. We need to take the floor and we need to speak up. And that's why as well, we are launching also project, as you know, with the wing, but also again with the project AHEAD at the World Economic Forum Davos Week in January 2026. We need to be there. We need to show up. We need to speak.
Thank you.
And little
Thank
by
you,
little,
Lucia.
we can do events.
Thank you, Lucia, also for introducing indeed important topic like technologies. They know also how the geopolitical implication, the technology and the women role in those new area, but as well bringing the men into the conversation, because here it is not just having the women and the other side, the men, is just to work together. We need to complement each other and we need to just have the opportunity to be welcome in the discussion and to support them. And with this, we will give the floor to a technology expert, which is the Executive Vice President of Capgemini and also part of the G100 within the technology and technology and humanity wing, so apologies, is Cara Antoni. Cara, thank you for joining this meeting, and it's very important to have also your perspective, especially to have your insight. What should be the new model of governance in this changing environment, especially in innovation ecosystem that we are now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine, and good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, Dr. Habin, distinguished leaders, fellow change makers, and many friends that I see on this call. Thank you for bringing us together today. This conversation is not only timely, it's really overdue, because women's representation in leadership is not a woman's issue. It's an economic issue, a governance issue, and a societal imperative. There are three things that I see happening across the corporate domain that connects us with entrepreneurs, and I want to just walk quickly through those three observations. The first is the reality, and that is that opportunities are not equally distributed. I want to begin with a truth that I've lived many times. The talent is equally distributed, but opportunities are not. I've spent my career of the last 30 or more years now in technology. It's a sector that is innovative at its core, yet at times it's surprisingly traditional in its decision-making and in its representation. Women are still too often filtered out by what I would call invisible rules. There's legacy thinking, narrow definitions of what leadership looks like. Earlier in my own career, I once stood in a boardroom where I was the only woman, and it's not the only time that has happened, the only voice representing half of the world's population. And I remember thinking, if I don't speak,
no one else here will speak for us, will speak for women. And even recently, I've observed women who, despite having very strong performance, deep expertise, and clear track records of delivering value, whose roles are being eliminated without redeployment, where structures are shifting in ways that leave women disproportionately exposed. And it's not because women lack capability, but because systems still rely on pattern matching. They also look for those that are willing to go with the flow, to laugh at the jokes, to be a non-disruptor. And so filling leadership positions with people who look like and act like previous leaders. Data is history in numbers. Let me just repeat that one more time because it's an important small sentence. Data is history in numbers. And when history is erased, when history is incomplete, when it's unfairly documented or biased, this gets translated into the data that we see. And that data is biased and incomplete as a result today. Women are still judged on proven experiences. This is a perception because men are advanced on perceived potential. So it's not a pipeline problem, it is an investment problem. The second observation that I see is that the business case is very clear, but the investment gap remains. The irony is that we already know that the benefits are of diverse gender leadership, that in every study, whether it's in the UN, the World Bank, in industry research, we see the same results. Diversity drives innovation and homogeneity drives stagnation. This is especially true in tech and in innovation, where algorithms are deciding who gets a loan, who gets healthcare, who gets a job interview, where AI shapes the future of our economies and our democracies. We cannot afford to have only one gender coding and designing that future. Yet, corporate majority male, particularly those that I am on. Tech leadership remains majority male, and investment in female board candidates remains significantly lower. We see that investments in women, and particularly in women of color, are on average about 2%. And if you're a person of color, even lower. Entrepreneurial work that I have done through Women in Tech and Easy, supporting emerging startups and young innovators, has shown me something really important. That when women are given visibility, sponsorship, and investment, they don't just succeed, they lift entire systems with them. But intention is not enough. We need the structural change. And that brings me to my third observation in terms of bridging the gaps and what must change right now. So allow me to name 3 systemic gaps that I see that institutions and corporations must urgently address. The first is the sponsorship gap. Women receive mentorship. Men receive sponsorship. These two are not the same. I've had wonderful mentors, but the moments that changed my career came from sponsors who said my name in rooms that I was not in yet. And we need many more of those. There's a transparency gap, number 2. Succession plans and board selection processes are often opaque and they're determined in hidden processes or networks. We need to understand that men are in 80% of today's world's leadership roles and therefore making 80% of the decisions. If men and women do not mix their networks, women will not be on the radar and they will not be seen and they will not be selected for those next positions. If you cannot see the pipeline, you cannot fix the pipeline. And the third observation is the accountability gap. We have to move from cheerleading or allyship to bringing measurable outcomes. We need advocates, not cheerleaders and not allies. That means individuals who are willing to take action. Diversity should not be optional. It should be a governance KPI that is tied to performance, investment, and reputation. And this is how we build systems where women are not the exception, but the expectation. So in my closing, a call to action to leave you with. I want to leave you with first three questions that I would direct at our institutions, at regulators, and other corporate leaders. My first question is, how are we incentivizing boards, especially in tech, to invest equally in qualified female leaders? Second question, should gender representation in leadership become a measurable governance KPI tied to executive compensation and investor scoring, the same way we now treat climate or risk? And the third question is, are we willing to make leadership pipelines transparent so we can move from intention to advocacy and accountability? Because representation is not a nice to have. It is essential to building technology and societies that work for everyone. When women lead, systems expand. When women are at the table, progress accelerates. And when we ensure equal participation, we don't just change the statistics, we change the world. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Cara. Really appreciate your intervention. And indeed, women should not be an exception, but an expectation. So it's with this that I would like really to give the floor to someone who is an ally for us. Is Robert Bakker. He's part of the G100 Denim Club. He's also the founder of the Potential Talent Consulting, and is a really a great ally for whole network of women in the UN, UK Women Trustee. And it's really a pleasure to have you, Robert, just as a representative of the many men that should be also in this conversation and become partner, not just like Cara said, ally, because we need to also move on from the ally, which is good to have, but we need really to strengthen the collaboration. To you. Thank you, Robert.
Oh, thank you, Cristina. Hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today. I must say I'm painfully aware that I am probably one of the very few men on the call with you here. But my life's work is about getting men engaged in gender equality, and particularly men in corporations, where I come from, really. So I'm working a lot in the sort of private sector company corporation environment, trying to persuade leaders that, especially who are often men, of course, that they should be embracing gender equality because it's good for business, it's good for everybody, basically. And of course, actually, gender equality is good for men too. And one of the key things that I stress is the benefits that I've seen as being able to basically embrace the full opportunity that gender equality gives me as well. So as I said, I'm working more in the corporate sector with large multinational companies in Europe to improve the workplace culture and to work the environment for women, and also women's representation in leadership that was mentioned, which is critical. And there's a lot of work going on now, perhaps more than there's ever been before, because there's been a recognition that if we don't engage men, who really are sort of 80% of the leaders in the corporate world and 60% of the line managers, if we don't get them engaged in this whole initiative to level the playing field for women, then progress is going to be much slower. And already, we're coming into a time, as you know, where we've got pushback, where we've got other blockages and challenges that are making life difficult. I'm pleased to say that many companies in Europe still want to make progress on inclusion because they believe it's good for business as well as it's the right and fair thing to do. So what I'm doing is working on sort of what we've typically called allyship, which is getting men to be supportive of women in the workplace. I actually prefer to term this partnership because I think it is actually a partnership of equals. And as I said earlier, gender equality is not a women's issue alone. It's an issue for men too, and it's good for us. So when I speak about allyship and partnership, I'm talking about the benefits for men as well as the benefits for women. Having said that, of course, there's a recognition of that the system currently is stacked in the favor of men. And that's why I talk about leveling the playing field. And actually what we've got to see is much greater progress there, I think, because when I look around, I don't see enough organizations with sufficient women in the workplace, as women at the top of the workplace, for example, women in leadership. And I think there's more work that we can do there. What I ask men to do, basically to support this, number one is really to use the positions of power and privilege that we have to basically make a difference, to open doors, to level that playing field. One of the key things that we as men can do, especially in a corporate environment, is to sponsor and mentor women to help them have more opportunities, basically, to recognize that there are barriers that women face probably more than men. And one of the things that I do in the workshops that I run is basically raise the awareness of men to the fact that they've had that privilege where they haven't had to consider how they got to where they got to, whereas for women, it's often been a much bigger challenge. So it's really raising the awareness of men and then getting them to take action to start doing things to support women, whether that's sponsorship or whether that's challenging gender bias that they see in the way that people are recruited or promoted, and making sure that there's always that question, like, who are the voices being heard in this room? Are we actually having a balance? Are we listening to and we're hearing women's voices? So I think that's kind of one of the key things that I'm asking them to do. The second thing really is to help make themselves accountable for change. I think it's very easy for men to sort of take an interest in this, but really not to do much. And I think we need to move on to action, basically. So by holding ourselves accountable, I think as men, for action to do things like, for example, work on the gender pay mentioned earlier by Lucia. We need to close that gender pay gap, and men can do more for that. We can also do more to close representation gaps as well. So I think what I'm convinced of, if you like, is that we will only make progress if we do get men engaged in this. And particularly as we come into a time now where we're seeing the impact of AI. I was at a conference last week where we talked about the gap that's opening up in terms of the adoption gap for women in AI and the risks that the bias within the algorithms in AI represents for women in the workplace too. So I think this is a time when we've got to look at all the different areas that are creating potential challenges for equality and make sure that we as men are standing up and being counted for that. So finally, really my commitment to working with G100 and to working with all of you is to use whatever influence I have to convince leaders in companies, particularly male leaders, that they need to change, that they need to embrace inclusion, that they need to embrace gender balance. And I'm building a community of supportive men that I've got to say I'm very happy that there's more men now engaged with this than ever before, but we need more. And so we need to step up our action on that. So with that, I would like to thank you for inviting me to make a few remarks. I've listened to the rest of the comments that have been made. And, I know we are at a time of exceptional challenge, but I believe by working together, we can address those challenges and make some progress.
Thank you, Robert, because your contribution, it is always so valuable. Also because you are a man driven by action. It is not only advocacy, it's really you want to make a change and you want, like you say, to embrace the category, your colleague, and trying to also demonstrate with concrete action that is a benefit for everybody if there is more gender equality, not only for women, but for men as well, for the economy, so for the complete society. And with this, I give the floor to Sanja Popovic-Pantic. She's also part of the academy. She's a research child of the Enterprise Europe Network for Women and G100 Global Child for the MSME. Thank you, Sanja, for joining us, and the floor to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. Today I would like to shed light on some emerging trends in women's entrepreneurship across Europe from the perspective of the global chair of G100 and the chair of the international thematic group on women entrepreneurship within Enterprise Europe Network. These initiatives, which began or continued in 2025, are set to grow and evolve in the years ahead. What is currently at the heart of European initiatives focused on women entrepreneurs? First of all, circular economy. And this year, there were organized numerous workshops on this topic across Europe, from natural cosmetics based on fruit pit processing to solar dryers that use the power of the sun to dry fruit, application of AI in different sectors,
All of them demonstrated that sustainability can be both profitable and inspiring. Next, digital transformation. Women entrepreneurs show that digitalization is not only about manufacturing. Almost every service today and all the processes behind it can be transformed through digital tools. Women entrepreneurs have proven that innovation is not reserved for big systems. Then artificial intelligence has also become a new reality for the women's entrepreneurship sector. Indeed, this year within G100 and beyond, women invested significant effort to education and opening a dialogue on how AI can be used in business. And this is only the beginning of a journey we will continue together, I believe. Another important focus for us has been support for women-led startups. Through Cascade funding projects, we brought new opportunities closer to women developing high-tech startups. And today we see more and more entrepreneurs stepping into this world with confidence. We also placed intergenerational cooperation. We see a growing trend of empowering women investors, women who want to support other women, especially in the startup and innovation sectors. The numbers are still small, just like the number of highly innovative companies led by women, but this is becoming a priority for many European initiatives. And finally, within several EU projects, we worked on a set of important recommendations for strengthening women's entrepreneurship in Europe. And I believe these recommendations apply well beyond Europe. For example, the first one, it's always about access to finance, of course, in the first place. Then we need to strengthen institutional programs that build skills, offer mentoring, and provide long-term support. We must ensure better balance between business and family life because no women should have to choose between opportunity and responsibility. We must promote women's employment in sectors traditionally seen as male. We need to strengthen networks and associations of women entrepreneurs because collaboration is one of the strongest drivers of growth. And we must create measures that improve the resilience of women-led businesses so they can withstand crises, economic shocks, and uncertainties of the global market. And finally, we must continue promoting good practices because visible success stories have the power to inspire thousands of others. If we want more women to step forward, we must first show them that the path is already being built and they are not walking it alone. So that's all for me. I believe I'm.
Thank you. Thank you, Sania, also for bringing the voice of the entrepreneurship. Indeed, this is also a sector where women are increasing, women entrepreneur, women in leadership, but also beautiful said the intergenerational cooperation and the support of women to women. We don't ask only the men, but we need to support each other in this journey. And with this, I give the floor to Lara Scarpita, which is the senior advisor on and head of the gender issue program of the OSCE in the Office of the Secretary General, the Organization for Security and Cooperation. Thank you, Lara, for being with us. And also following Sania's point on the importance, but also Lucia, to engage with the youth, to engage with the new generation. I leave to you the floor because I know that you are working a lot also in this matter.
No, grazie Cristina, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's actually a pleasure for me to be able to co-host these conversations. So I think chapeau to you and to Women 100 for convening this discussion. I think we've heard very well throughout this afternoon, and we all agree on why we need to have these conversations. And why we have to build also the synergies. Just a word for those of you who might don't know what the OSCE is, just to put in the framework of what the work that we're doing in relation to the WPS agenda and youth. The OSCE is the world's largest regional security organization. We have 57 participating states, from the US and Canada all the way to Russia, Mongolia. So we're really covering the global north. And we have an understanding of security, so-called comprehensive approach to security, which covers the political and military, environmental and economic, as well as the human dimension, human rights, anti-discrimination. And gender equality has been streamlined throughout our activities on the basis of a very important action plan that was adopted 20 years ago, but it's still very much the living document that we use, despite the current circumstances, to mainstream gender everywhere in all the actions that we do. And this is important, particularly now, because just allow me a reflection in the current context where we see the most traditional countries who have been championing for decades gender equality, actually backtracking on women's rights, having a solid document and a solid accountability mechanism for pushing the agenda forward, still remains the most important tool that we have. Also vis-à-vis other countries which have been non-traditionally supportive of gender equality, but at the global level, for example, the countries of Central Asia are now extensively promoting the women, peace and security agenda, so they can be valuable advice. Allies, sorry. Back to your question, what we're doing on WPS and youth. I think we are very much in certain ways aligned to many of the activities that many others of our partners are doing, including the EU, obviously at the UN. And one of our priorities is also pushing at the global level for the inclusion of women in peace and security efforts, but with an understanding of peace and security, not just in conflict, but also in the framework of addressing crises like climate change. We need the WPS agenda within the climate negotiations. We also need to support the women leadership in all the male-dominated areas, including the police, for example. The same does apply when it comes to youth inclusion. Of course, this year we're marking not only the WPS anniversary, but also the 10th anniversary of the Youth Peace and Security Agenda, which has also created that kind of momentum internationally to look more at the participation of youth in security and peace efforts. And we have several activities, several actions that we've launched. One of them is an initiative targeted to young women in Central Asia, and as well as Afghanistan. And why Central Asia is primarily not only because it's a priority for the OSCE, but also because the Central Asian countries have a large youth population. So investing in women, in the young women role in peace building, with training, with capacity building, but also using the leverage that we have as international organization to opening up doors for youth. I think it's very important because, we're talking about youth up until the age of 35, where they will turn adults, so to say, and very, very soon. So we really, the time to invest into young women is now. And I know I see Loredana connected as well, and we're working very closely also with the network, with Anna, to actually promote, using the Women's Network, to promote these vital intergenerational exchanges. Because when we're talking about the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, one of the biggest risks is that we're facing, in my view, is that we are going going to lose the expertise. And now with the cut of funding for many local organizations, many women activists and experts are giving up their work. They've gone too old. They're choosing other paths. So we need to also leverage the networks that we have to share for intergenerational exchanges. But investing today in the youth, linking them, for example, to technology, to artificial intelligence discussions, to climate change, climate activists are mostly youth, is extremely important. But another final point that I want to make, because I'm trying to be concise, even if I was given 10 minutes, but I'm conscious of the delay that we have, is that, and it was touched upon, investing in men. And we are working a lot on engaging men for gender equality. And I think it's important to have men champions of gender equality. But we also need to work with the young men, with women and men, but also with the young men, because if you want to break down barriers to stereotypes and you want to fight online violence and misogyny, you really need to target the right audience. And this is under 30 young male university students. And in this regard, and this is something that is extremely new, we launched a couple of weeks ago, a new initiative, which is we brought together young women and men from the Western Balkan countries, which is an area, obviously, where there is also a reconciliation and post-conflict aspect to be discussed, to talk together about gender equality. So we are bringing young women and young men together to talk about gender equality. And, over a 5 days period, it's not training, it's not capacity building, it's really unpacking the needs that they have. And so this is part of our efforts to really try to work early on in changing some of the dynamics that we are seeing later on, and which obviously are affecting women inclusion, women participation, discrimination, and gender inequalities. So this is in a nutshell of what we're doing on youth. But thank you again for this opportunity, and I look forward listening to all the other contributions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lara. I really appreciate what you are doing indeed for the youth, and as well what you are doing for this intergenerational cooperation with young women, but also young men, so with the student, because like you said, this is a process, and we need to invest even more on the youth because it will become a natural change. And with this, I give the floor to Diana De Vivo, which is the team leader, Women, Peace and Security of the Human Security Session Political Affairs of the Division Headquarters of NATO. Thank you, Diana, for being with us. And as well, we all today during this meeting, we spoke a lot about what is the role of women on to support the peace and security, but also of human security itself, not only women and not only the per se, the gender equality aspect, but all the aspect of the human security. To you the floor for some more insight from NATO.
Thank you so much, Cristina. I'm very happy to be here and to see so many familiar faces around the table today, but also so not many familiar faces. It's great that you put together this dialogue, also including the private sector, because they're very much more a critical part of this conversation today, at least from a NATO perspective, but not only, as I understood from many of you. So just to give you set this into context, NATO has been working on the women, peace and security agenda since the mid-50s, really, with the establishment of the first NATO Committee on Women in the Armed Forces. And the first NATO policy on WPS was actually adopted in 2007. So NATO's role in advancing this agenda is purely from a security and sort of defense perspective, so just to put this into context. So we are looking into advancing work on women, peace and security in the different areas of deterrence and defense. So within NATO, 3 core tasks, which are deterrence and defense, cooperative security, so the old global partnerships, and crisis prevention and management. That means that we include and mainstream WPS within NATO's reflections on, to give you a few examples, on counterterrorism, on information threats, on CBRN, on technology-facilitated gender-based violence, on cyber defense, resilience, and many other topics that you have already mentioned. So NATO has adopted a new policy on WPS last year. So at the Washington summit, which was agreed by NATO member states, NATO heads of state and government. And the new policy takes really into account the new security environment in which NATO is operating, which, of course, you all know has become much more complex and is always very ever evolving. And it commits NATO to advance WPS in the areas actually that I've just mentioned, but to include addressing technology-facilitated gender-based violence, the impact of emerging and disruptive technologies, hence why the private sector is so critical to this dialogue. And of course, climate change, terrorism, the challenges arising from the southern neighborhood, but also to really mainstream WPS in NATO's deterrence and defense work. Because, of course, like NATO's concept of security is transforming, as you've seen from the security environment we're facing. And what nations and allies are emphasizing here in NATO is to strengthen NATO's deterrence and defense, warfighting readiness, and the operational effectiveness. So now we're looking at putting emphasis on WPS as actually a core element of this transformation. So very much what you mentioned, Cristina, at the beginning it's not a new way, it's a way to look at WPS to enhance our preparedness and societal resilience as a whole. So not projecting WPS as only a value-based agenda, but very much linking into the really operational outcomes that this agenda will enable actually us to achieve. So the new policy on WPS has 4 strategic objectives. It really reproduces the pillars of the global agenda. So participation, prevention, and protection, of course, but it has a new objective on gender responsive leadership and accountability, because the work we're doing in NATO is on really building leadership capacity and training NATO leaders to advance work on women, peace, and security. We're now also working on developing the next action plan for the next 5 years to mainstream WPS in the different NATO the work strands. And we're socializing now the plan with different allies, and we're preparing for the negotiations of this new action plan actually in the new year. So as I was mentioning at the beginning, the reflection we are actually conducting here in NATO is WPS is a core element of defense. And we need more case studies. We need more good practices from any allies, also from the defense industry, to really help us sort of build the narrative which is not the natural place of birth of this agenda, as we all know, but we need to look at as actually was being said also before, at the new challenges that will affect gender equality actually in the future. In defense and security, much of those challenges are arising from the defense and security environment, but also from the technology actually environment as well. And as technology is becoming an enabler of security and defense currently, but also much more in the future, it will pretty much define the way warfare is conducted. We need to make this reflection right now. But so security is transforming, and it is a great laboratory for us to expand the WPS agenda to new areas that represent a challenge for gender equality. So such as space, for example. We did this wonderful gathering, Cristina, on space, on the mainstreaming WPS considerations in space. And it was great to really gather the different actors in the space sector, also academia, industry, civil society, private sector, to discuss actually what it means to integrate WPS perspective in such a specific actually environment, which is also an operational domain for the Alliance. So it was a wonderful dialogue, but it actually forced us to get out of our WPS bubble, but to put different actors together to discuss what concretely we can do to advance the agenda in those areas. And this is my reflection number one. Getting out of the WPS bubble is actually critical to really explore new ways in which we have to look at this agenda in the future, and that are actually critical for us to advance work on WPS. We talked a lot about participation in this dialogue, and it's great that we did it because it's a critical pillar of the global agenda. But what we saw in NATO is that participation is not really enough. We need to have women not only participate, but have a say at the negotiation tables, have a say at the decision-making tables. If there's no enabling environment around this, a participation is not going to do much for us. And we have seen it with actually, when we're looking at increasing the number of women in the armed forces of NATO member states, which is still very, very low. We're talking at 13% still. So when we look at the future defense planning, we have seen that there's, even if sometimes there's women who participate and members of the armed forces, there's no enabling environment that facilitates their development, their safe space, their training, their professionalization, and even there's no enabling environment. We talked about equipment before. Somebody mentioned the need to have equipment that fits women's body. There's not even equipment that fits women's body to be able to utilize the full potential during war fighting. We've seen that with Ukraine as well. So participation is great, but the decision-making, enabling environment to make sure women can fully exploit their potential is absolutely critical. And my last reflection is that I think it's important to sort of not changing the narrative on the WPS agenda, but really to sort of reframe the narrative and picture this agenda not only as a value-based agenda. It is a value-based agenda, we all know very well, but what we're doing in NATO to make sure that this work resonates to different audiences is to ensure that WPS is much more perceived as part of NATO's core business. It's part of NATO's deterrence and defense discussions, and it is an agenda which is critical to enhance NATO's operational effectiveness and also its warfighting readiness for the future. So I will close with this, Cristina.
Thank you, Diana.
I'll leave you.
Thank you so much for joining us and for your contribution. I really love the WPS bubble because I mean everybody's living in his own bubble, and this is something that we try also to change with this kind of event, and to also. But in the end, we see that we are all experience the same challenges in our own environment, and it's good to see and to keep connecting to also brainstorm who is doing what to overcome those challenges and what we can do all together. And like you said, indeed, the security is transforming, and technology is start to become an enabler of peace and security. As well, like you said, we have to think about the women that are joining the security sector, but also the women that are in the remote community in a country where the crisis is already there, and they have to cope with the resilience, but also with the preparedness, and to take care of the community, to also replace the men that are serving the society. And with this, I want to give the floor to Loredana Teodoruscu, who is the head of the EU and International Affairs and Institute Luigi Sturzo, president of Women International Security Italy, and G100 Italian Chair for Security and Defense. So to you, Loredana, the floor, and thanks.
So good afternoon, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for bringing us together. It's great to be here with many friends and colleagues, but also to see some new faces.
A lot has been said, of course, so I will maybe just reiterate some observations while bringing my own specific experience working on the Women, Peace and Security agenda, and more specifically on the participation pillar, because we know that is one of the most challenging now, yet I would say one of the most essential ones. Indeed, participation is at the core of the resolution 1325. It was a great promise. It's still an unfinished job. And as I speak as participation, I also enlarge, as Diana said, a little bit the picture. So it's about participation, it's about creating the condition and enabling environment for that. But it's also for me about recognition. So we know that while there are not so many women at formal tables, at the same time, we know that there are many women working more at grassroots level within our societies. Bridging, divided communities, keeping alive dialogues in times of polarization, creating the premises for peace and security. Which is essential because what we are doing now is just reacting when conflicts are already there or when crises are already there, while we know that we should invest more in, first of all, in prevention, and then we should invest more in creating the peace. So it's not enough to have just a deal. It's really important to work at different levels of society. So what the women mediators I'm working with are, teaching us is that mediation, diplomacy, peace, security are a more, have a more holistic definition. So it's really important to do and to work at different levels and to bring together those different actors. So again, looking at the Women, Peace and Security agenda, we know that this year we are celebrating the 25th anniversary, which gives us a little bit the opportunity to look back and reflect on what has been done and what needs still to be done. On a positive note, I would say that there is a whole normative framework in place. So there is an instrument which we can leverage, holding the international community accountable for those promises and pushing, as we said, the international community to do more because they agreed on the 1325 resolution and on the following resolutions. At the same time, those resolutions were translated into national action plans, and some practices, best practices are already there. And this is something, again, that we could look at and leverage as much as possible. As I was saying, for us, participation goes hand in hand with recognition and also with influence. So, for instance, what women mediators I'm working with are often telling me is that they don't just want to sit at the table, they want to shape that table. So they want to influence and shape the way those tables, those processes are put in place, putting on the agenda priorities and reflecting their own perspective. So it's important not just to have, women there as a tokenistic participation, but it's really important to ensure that they have a say and they can really bring their own insights and perspectives. And at the same time, the issue of recognition is essential also to give visibility to what women are already doing, and allowing the different actors to support what women are doing in very difficult circumstances, which again is essential. I have many examples. I'm working with many extraordinary women all over the world. In Libya, in Lebanon, for instance. Lebanon is a country which still has to reconcile with its past. There is a huge need to recreate trust across the sectarian divides, and our mediator, Lea Barudi, is exactly doing this, preventing further violence, further radicalization. So in the end, preventing, further violence and conflicts. Same for other mediators in Cyprus, where women are gathering together from the two sides of the island, despite the process which is stalled. And so in a way, they are keeping alive the possibility of peace and dialogue, despite the difficult circumstances. So this kind of mediation represents a different way of doing diplomacy, with empathy, with trust, building on relationships, creating the space for dialogue. And what networks of women mediators are doing, or more generally speaking, networks led by women, is exactly this: bringing women together, creating a space where women can learn from each other, can support each other, giving the visibility and maybe sometimes also the access to stakeholders. So ensuring that these women can influence the different processes. They are creating a space also where the new generations of mediators, of peace builders, can flourish, can learn from others. There is this intergenerational dialogue. Lara Scarpita was mentioning that, because we are working a lot promoting networks as a strategic tool to implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda. And actually, we wrote a paper on that, which will be soon published. And in a way, these networks are creating an alternative to the context in which we are living, characterized by this huge focus on hard security, on militarization. So they are telling us that security and peace can be achieved also in different ways, leveraging the work done by women mediators, and again, also leveraging those spaces, those networks, bringing women together. So going to my final remarks, because I know that we are already a little bit late. I would say that if we want to move from the promises, the commitments done with the Women, Peace and Security agenda to a concrete implementation, which means ensuring that women can be there, can shape processes, can have a say, can be seated at the table, can be recognized for the work they are doing. It's really important to see the agenda as a collective commitment. This is why it's so important, especially now, in such a challenging environment. It's so important to come together, to work together, to foster strategic partnerships across the different policy agendas, across the different actors, bridging the silos which still exist. So the agenda cannot be sidelined. It's not something that we can just add on. It's really a political and cross-cutting agenda. So it's important that it's always integrated in our strategic discussions. And as was already said, it's not just about conflict, it's really about how we are addressing the current crisis. And this is something that I'm experiencing on a daily basis with my work with the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network, which is a network of women mediators launched by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also with WISE Italy, Women in International Security Italy, which in the end is again a network of women supporting each other and trying to find their own space within the broad security spectrum. So I will stop here, but again, let me reiterate that today defending the Women, Peace and Security agenda is more essential than ever, precisely because of the challenging context in which we are living in. And protecting and defending the agenda means giving a possibility to peace itself. And it's really the time to do more and to do more together.
Thank you, Loredana. I really appreciate. I like indeed your point on the need for recognition, the need to have the women not only sitting on the table, but shape the table and the future, as well involving the youth, and as well the collective commitment that is for making this agenda implemented, but also for everything. And as well, what is also the influence of what is the technology on all of this, because we are living in an era where IE will be part of our daily work and life. We cannot ignore. We need to continue to take it into consideration. And also, again, going back on Diana's point, the fact that now technology is becoming enabler for peace and security, it brings us also to organizations like the European European Space Agency, where we have today also the pleasure to have Ercilia Vaudo, who is the chief of the diversity officer for the European Space Agency, but also very involved in all matter that related to education. So STEM. Ercilia, thank you for being with us. The floor to you.
Thank you to you, and I'm really grateful also to be able to expose to this fantastic reflection, and I always get something with me after, so thank you very much. We can take different angles when we talk about space. For sure, there is an element related to space that is start to emerge as a big topic, and is not just space as a technology and let's go to the moon or let's go to Mars, but is what space is doing for social injustice and what space is doing also for women. And it's important that we start to see this angle, because actually there are many elements of empowerment that can involve women and goes from the STEM. Actually, space is really one of the major inspirational elements to attract girls in this kind of fields. And for instance, just to give you an example of my country, in Italy, we have that while there is a stagnating number of women taking STEM, aerospace is really going up. So there is a potential there to really reinforce this element of attractiveness. But there is also what the infrastructure can do. Today, space is becoming an unavoidable infrastructure. We highly depend on space. And in particular, when it's about the climate change, when it's about, we know that women are the most impacted by climate change. There is an unequal access to resources. So, you know, in many regions, women have less access to land rights, credit, insurance, are more exposed to the climate shocks. There is a greater dependence on natural resources. So they are often in many countries and in Africa, in Asia, they are responsible for water, for food, for fuel, and it's clear that when you have floods or soil degradation, this really increase the vulnerability of women. There is also a much higher mortality in climate disaster, and these are empirical data, very interesting, because shows that women and girls die in higher number due to mobility constraints because of their caregiving roles and reduced access to warnings. And then, of course, there is also the disproportionate health impact on women with respect to men. So the use of the space infrastructure can really bring to a shift and to a new way women could have access to, for instance, education, but also, and this is something that I really want to highlight, as European Space Agency, we try to have this data. You know that Copernicus is the #1 provider of data on Earth, on climate change, on Earth observation. But what are these data doing for a woman in Africa? Now we have applications that allow directly these numbers to be useful for the individual through some algorithm, so that you can know how to do the best use of the water you have, of the little of water you have, if it's better to use this way or this other way. You can be part of a warning system. You can be part of, and not just receive second, third hand information. You can be part of a connectivity that by design gives women much more power. So much more power. So this is the way, and this is also why women are more attracted to space. It's no longer allow me the terms, testosteronic narrative that we had in the 70s, that is let's conquer, let's fight, let's compete, but the impact they can provide and bring to peace and to energy and to water and to the great challenges of tomorrow. Now, of course, and you know, Cristina, this is my militant approach. In my view, if there will be a real revolution with respect to the subject of women empowerment, the day that we will be able to make sure that as from elementary schools, girls get into mathematics, because it's true the possibility to master this language, and not master this language because everyone should become engineers when they're old, but because the equal opportunities are based on this. You have to be able to choose. And I say this because I remember my daughter say, Mom, it's enough with these things, with this narrative, girls do STEM, because you patronize us. Like, white boys understand this, and you don't want to understand how important is STEM. And she told me the most important things is that until the end, we can decide if being an engineer or a poet or something else. So, and this is part of the kind of transformation that I hope also through teleeducation spread all over the world, we can really bring, because the STEM subject are the space where we build, imagine, and make possible the future. And to have a lack of women in this potential is really missing part of what this future could offer to women.
Thank you, Ercilia. I really appreciate. And yes, like we said, data is history, our data. Data is also the future. Nowadays, data are essential for any decision-making processes. And this is what indeed the Copernicus, on terms of Earth observation, is providing through investment in space technology, which also can contribute to subjects like peace and security, but also like we said as well, and with the other speaker, with Bodil Valero, we need also to speak about human security. What is the impact on climate change and the climate change, the impact on women, on natural resources. But as well on youth, the importance to have equip the youth with the knowledge that will bring them to make a choice. Like you said, sometimes it's also about religion. It's not to believe or not, but if you don't know if you agree or not in something. You don't know what you can choose or not. So investing in education since the elementary school, especially investing on female, on a girl, to make them more attracted to discipline like mathematics and physics is something that need to be taken an innovative way to do education. So reshape also the way how we educate kids, especially in such a young age. We need to be creative. So we need to bring them close to certain discipline that looks like too technical, in a way like you do, like storytelling, like creative labs that you are bringing all over Italy, especially in a remote area of Italy, because this is also what is a culture, and giving the opportunity and equipping young kids with education, with the culture, it is also the opportunity to give a new future, because when you have the education, you can choose if you want to remain maybe in education and bring a tool to change your future. And all speak when we speak about gender equality, is not just because we want to have the rights. It's a benefit for everybody, for men, but it's also about competitiveness. It's also economic will. So if we can invest in the youth and in the kids already at early age, it's like create the path for economic growth, prosperity, but also to prevent, because we said already we want to move from resilience to anticipation, and if we start already on the youth, we can more easily arrive to a future where the change is a natural flow. And with this, I thank you, Ercilia, for all what you do for the European Space Agency, but also for Il Cielo Itinerante, which is really something amazing that, like you said, tele-education, you give an opportunity to some kids that doesn't have by culture or by opportunity, and we need to be equal not only in gender but in all level of the society. So thank you so much for being with us and for your contribution. So we are now opening the floor for the audience question. So if someone has a question, can raise the hands and come on mute. And we don't have all the speaker because some speaker unfortunately had to leave for other commitment, but we will try to cover together as a team eventually the question. So if there are questions, please. Lucia, thank you. You are on mute, Lucia.
So yeah, thanks very much. I have many questions, maybe one which is a little bit more practical, which was mentioned by a couple of speakers and which is really important for me and for the work I do is many said, okay, a couple said, people, women should be not only be at the table as a, tick box checks, but also be able to contribute. So is anybody having, a couple like real experience about, what is the difference between being at the table and being able to contribute, and how do you really make people to contribute? Because you could have like a legal requirement, national, European, or regional requirement, or so these I think is something which is said, and also I'm struggling with how to make it real, like this contribution, because for me sitting at the table is already like a big step ahead.
Loredana, maybe do you want to take this question or just together brainstorm, because maybe it's also your question?
Yeah. Of course, it's more like a brainstorming, but I can bring my experience. And as you said, Lucia, of course, being at the table is already a big achievement. But what happens sometimes, or the risk, is that women are put there just to, just to say that women were present. And so it's not what we are aiming at. So contributing to creating those tables means, for instance, ensuring that women are included in all the strategic discussions and reflections. So for instance, now, I don't know, if we think about Ukraine, we had a big conference on the reconstruction and the recovery of Ukraine in Italy last July. And what we did, on that we partnered with Lara Scarpita and OSCE, for instance, was ensuring that women's perspectives were also included there, because of course they can bring a different perspective, their own specific experience, and they can put on the table some priorities which not necessarily emerge from the whole conversation, because we know that recovery is not just about infrastructures, it's much more than that, and women can contribute and are already contributing. So for what we are doing with the Mediterranean Women Mediators Network is ensuring that women are included also in those strategic reflections and discussions, and also partnering as much as possible with stakeholders, so we can really create this kind of alliance and generate spaces. And at the same time, we act as a bridge, linking what happens on the ground and is a little bit invisible, as we said, with the formal spaces. So in a way, we ensure that also this kind of experience can be used and can be beneficial in order to understand then around formal tables what are the issues and how to deal with them. But
Thank
again,
you,
it's
Loredana.
a collective effort, so
yes,
we really need to work together also on this.
Thanks a lot. I would like to give the floor to Lara, because maybe also from your experience, Lara, you can help us to understand how we can get this opportunity to shape and not only to sit.
I have been also working extensively in the Syria context, and also Libya, where we know that the struggle of having women in track one negotiations. I mean, from my experience, is the issue is twofold. I agree we need women at the table, and I advocating for a 50-50. We have the CEDAW recommendation, the general recommendation 40. We should not settle for less than 50% across all decision-making tables, because it's a replica. You don't have women in leadership position, therefore you don't have them at the negotiating table or in a decision-making table. So you need to work at multi-level. But it's also, so the numbers count, we need to push for the numbers, but at the same time, it's also important to work on the ways women can influence the decision-making tables and the peace processes, because ultimately you can't have everyone at the table. Not every woman can be at the table, but from my experience, one thing that we did extensively, we're doing it now also in the context of Ukraine, we did with the Syria women, was to, as an international organization, at the time I was working for the EU, was to link the track one actors, the women at the track one, with the women at the grassroots level, because very often you have this gap, this which obviously creates also questions of legitimacy, in a way that the needs on the ground were then brought in an organic way to the track one negotiation processes. And of course, another way to do it is also to allowing women to influence the discussion, is also by giving them spaces to voice their demands. This means making sure that they have, for example, they intervene at open debates in the UN Security Council. They are invited, using our channels in the international arena to make sure that their voices is heard at international level. This is also a way in which women, and especially the grassroots organizations, which have limited access, and Loredana pointed out the problem of access and recognition, are actually brought up to the international forum. So really there is no just one strategy. I think one needs to work with the numbers, but also needs to work with connecting the different layers and offer as many opportunities and as many voices. And the other aspect, which is very often not considered in peace processes, is not just having the women at the table, but actually having gender equality mainstreamed into negotiations, because this doesn't happen. You have discussions on hardcore security which exclude women, as if like soft security issues concern women. We also have to change, one point that I wanted to mention before, is that we also need to change the language that we use. We can no longer speak about women issues. I mean, there isn't such a thing as woman issue. Hardcore security is a woman issue as much as education is a man issue. So changing the language, and making sure that we are not only saying women need to be at the table because they're women. Women need to be at the table because they have an expertise and they're knowledgeable about what they are bringing into the discussion. Because I find that speaking about expertise is more of an entry point than just the right to be there, which is it is a right, we have to defend it, but resonates better, or at least it's much more difficult to challenge when you're talking about expertise. At least this is my experience of working on with conflicts. So over to you.
Thank you, Laura. I agree totally indeed about the gender point. So I see Linda McDonald. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Linda McDonald from Canada, a grassroots feminist activist working with women who've been tortured by non-state actors. And what my question is how do you connect the peace that women are negotiating, and also allow them to give space to the violence that they've been subjected to in war, which is often state torture, or the non-state torture that results after or during the war by paramilitary and other men who take the violence back to the family. So I feel they're very intimately connected. Peace cannot be for women unless we're safe everywhere, not only in war, but in our everyday worlds. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you for this point, Linda, and for all what you do in this subject. Really, really admirable. I think Anna Carla, indeed, from the European Commission, touched this argument that was also something that the European Commission tried to consider within the policy they are doing in the roadmap, but maybe again, or Lara or Diana, if he's still in the call, can help us to answer in a more specific way to your question.
Yeah, briefly, because I need to go. I mean, when I was speaking about the reality on the ground, of course, women which are affected by conflict-related sexual violence and by torture, and we see this unfortunately growing in all the conflicts, all these associations, if they are connected to track one negotiations, it is a way to bring this to the international, to the negotiating table. It goes without saying what I mentioned, gender equality in the negotiating discussions is very often, the rights of the survivors of conflict-related sexual violence does not enter the negotiating peace agreements. It doesn't. It gets excluded. We are only talking about maybe ceasefire. So that's why we need to bring gender equality and gender, and I don't like the word issue, but this is the way it is referred to, issues pertaining to gender equality within the framework of peace negotiations. By doing that, by using multiple entry of influence, and also by connecting the grassroots organization to the track one. Networks are a very important tool to do that.
Thank
from
you,
our
Lara.
experience.
Patricia,
And I have to excuse myself because
thank
I'm
you
shooting off
for
to the other
joining us,
meeting.
and I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Patricia, do
Dr.
you
Lara,
want?
as I've worked with Libya, and I have like 400 women's network, women's activists there, I could help you. We can connect after, because this is very important. And they are peace builders in Libya. What I wanted to say also for everybody is my wrap up is like Dr. Lina Galvez Munoz said, we cannot afford to be in silos. We need to unite, cooperate, and link. The only way we can fight this backlash is by being united in all ways. And also, this is
Yes,
what
you are right. Just
very
because
important.
we are almost at the end.
Yes, all of those entities have reports. We need to have all those reports united to have a synthesis of those reports. And this is what I'm, on the 13th of December, I'm doing in the French Senate with all French entities, conveying them to have a synthesis of all their reports. And this is very important to help women.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I give the floor very quickly. Dusha, Fest, Charlotte, and Gusla, please, because we have 5 minutes time, and then so Charlotte, please, to you the floor.
Yes, thank you, Cristina. So I work for the Dutch military for CMI command, and I've been lucky in that job to have had good mentors and all of that. And I was wondering, because it was mentioned at multiple occasions, men receive sponsorship, whereas women receive mentorship. What is that difference, and how can I work with that difference?
Yeah, that's a beautiful one indeed that we received from Cara, which I think it's not anymore in the call, but I will follow up the question and provide to you the specific answer, because it's good that you received from her. But in my interpretation, it is that women can be trained while men get the sponsor, which is a little bit the push. The push to get certain role or to get certain opportunity while we are still in the phase to be educated, which is not anymore the case, because we, like Lara said, we don't have to look at the gender only as a female and men, but as expertise. So what we want to achieve is really to bring our expertise despite our gender. And thank you, Charlotte, for being here. Dusha, please.
Thank you,
Quickly.
Cristina. I'm going to get short as possible. My name is Dusha Lubovskaya. I'm a global ambassador with 3 organizations, and I want to say that I support the majority of the women on this call: Patricia, and those who are part of the natural military. I personally support the initiative that women should be part of everything in the world, which is also part of why I joined the party. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guslan, to you.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here. My name is Gulshan Salam. I am based in Beirut and Istanbul. I am academic and researcher, also activist. This is first time joining your meeting. I just wanted to highlight one essential point. If we truly want to real change in our societies, we must support women and youth to reach decision-making position. This is my opinion. When women are present at the table as a decision maker, whether in politics, especially in politics, economy, education, health, or peace building, we do not only add diversity, we transform the mentality, the priorities, and the politics of policies and politics or our countries. Women leaders bring perspectives that often remain invisible. And okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Grisha.
I think your
Appreciate it.
time is.
Robert, we want to conclude because we have just 2 minutes with you. Thank you for being with us and for all your work. Please, you have the hand raised. Yeah.
Just a very quick comment on sponsorship. This is basically where I think men can play a much bigger role to support women in any organization, but particularly in the kind of companies that I support. So I always say to men, senior leaders, one of the biggest and best things you can do is to sponsor women. And what they're doing is they're really backing those women with their own reputation. And to some of these men, it can seem like a little bit of a risk because they're actually pushing these women forward and they're recommending them to others for high-profile engagements. So I say to the men, listen, this is something you need to do. You need to take this risk. You need to put women forward. They will repay you handsomely with the way that they perform if you give them these opportunities. And just wanted to kind of add that because I think it's so important that we get this message across.
Thank you so much, Robert. And I will close this beautiful event. I really want to thank you all the speakers for being with us and to the audience also to join this conversation. And just to recap a little bit on the sense of this event, I think things start to change when we start to think not about ourselves as individual, as organization, but as a group, as a society. So it's a matter to change as a we and not just as a I. And when we start also to think more than a personal ego to positive impact to the society, also all the decision-making process will be taken in a different way. So I want to thank you and emphasize indeed the need from the civil society to still strengthen and advocate the need to achieve this gender equality that is having a backlash, like we hear from Lina Galvez. It is an economical benefit for men and women, and we are missing a 3 trillion of euro if we don't achieve this gender equality. It is for ethical, but it is also for innovation, for education, for giving the youth the opportunity to shape a future which is different for what is the current one. So we arrive at the end of this the time. I don't know if the Zoom will close or we still have the time. I want to thank you all, and please continue in your own organization, in your own personal life, to do your best to achieve the gender equality. And despite who we are, just let's work together, because cooperation is the core of everything. And like said by Diana, we are living in bubble. By Dr. Arbin, we are working on silos. No, let's open the door and let's try to work all together. Also empowering women to define their own future. And on this, the G100 is doing a lot. Like Sheconomy is the platform, very agile, with educational kit where young entrepreneur, women, or all age that doesn't have a background or they just wish to go into the entrepreneurship can learn very easily and have an agile access. So please have a look on the platform and keep engaging with us, because we want to continue to have this cooperation, not only just one ad hoc event, but we want to continue to work together in a multilateral way in order that we can bring some positive impact on the society. Thank you all. If you still have a question, please drop an email and we will try to address the question to the dedicated representative. So thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoy this time with us. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all what you are doing in your own country, in your own organization to make this world a better place.
Cristina, this was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. I love you. Thank you.